Hi, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world. My name is Elena Christopher. I'm a Senior Vice President here at HFS Research. I'm delighted to welcome you to today's webinar. I'm joined by a couple of great panelists from the company Avnet, as well as from their partner Infosys. And we're going to talk with you today about the pursuit of digital transformation and really explore a facet of the journey that Avnet has been on. So stay tuned for that in just a moment. In the way of introduction, I'm going to hand over to my panelists. Nishant, why don't we go over to you and allow yourself to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Elena, and hi, everyone. I'm glad you guys could join us today. My name is Nishant. I'm the Vice President of Digital at Avnet. I've been in my current role for almost 4 years now, and really excited to share about the journey that Avnet's been through.
Super. Thanks, Nishant. Really pleased to have you on today. And Komal, let's go over to you for a brief introduction, please.
Wonderful. Thanks, Elena. Welcome, everyone. My name is Komal. I'm the Industry Head Vice President with Infosys. In my role, I get the opportunity to work on some really exciting work with many of our clients in the technology space. In this particular webinar, we're going to certainly talk about the great partnership we have with Avnet and the transformation journey we took with them. Excited to be here. Thanks.
Super. Thank you, Komal. So let's see if my slides will cooperate with me. But one of the things I wanted to let our various attendees know today, whenever at HFS, so we're obviously a research firm, and we've got a great piece of research that should you want to find out more about the great Avnet story that we'll tell you more about today, we've actually written a case study up on this. So we've got what we call our point of view report. This sits in front of our firewall. So if you follow this link, when we post the replay of this webinar early next week, it will also include this slide content and a very easy to access link to take you to this complimentary Voice of the Customer point of view document if you'd like to read more about this story. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We're going to take the better part of this hour to go through. I'll share some HFS market research context with you, and then we'll do essentially, I always call it an interview with slides with Nishant and Komal. And we really want to hear from you guys. So the way that we'll ask you to submit your questions is if you find the toolbar, and this is what I have up on the screen right now. There are various icons in a toolbar at the bottom of your, this is our Zoom infrastructure. So at the bottom of your Zoom window, there's a Q&A button. If you click on that, it'll bring up this field on the right, and you can type in your questions. We'll be monitoring the questions throughout. We'll try and answer some of them if they really dovetail well to the elements that we're talking about. We'll try and address some as we go, but otherwise we'll make sure that we leave a few minutes at the end of the session to go through some of the Q&A. So with that, let me just go a quick walk through the agenda. So in telling the story of digital transformation, it's one of these, it's becoming such a buzzword, digital transformation, what is it? So we really want to talk with you today about, in this case, Avnet's view on what digital transformation is all about, and really give you an example of one facet of their transformation. So some of the nuances that we'll talk about today to really illustrate this, to try and give you a great example about what we mean about digital transformation in this case, is we're firstly going to talk through this whole concept of why. Why do this to begin with? What does Avnet have to gain from going down this path, or even what did they have to lose by not doing so? Then we'll talk a little bit about where do you start, because that's one of, I know at HFS we do lots of inquiries with different firms, and we essentially get something that may not be used in these, or stated or asked in these exact terms, but the gist of it is, how do I determine the right place to start? Give me some thoughts on prioritization. So we'll hear from Nishant at Avnet on what some of his thoughts were representing his firm to really get started with something that would be impactful. And then we'll also learn a little bit about some of the particulars of Avnet's business. They do a lot in the business-to-business space. Is customer experience the same in a business-to-business context? So we'll talk a little bit about that. And ultimately, our target today is going to be about this interesting AI-enabled initiative that Avnet embarked on, which is the creation of a cognitive assistant called Ask Avnet. And so we'll have a bit of a dialogue about chatbots versus cognitive assistants. And we'll talk about why those are different and why it's much, much more challenging to actually launch a cognitive assistant. And then, of course, because we strongly believe in narrative closure as well as demonstrating why anything is important. We'll talk about why you pursue something, but it's also a lot about what business benefits do you get out of going down a particular path like digital transformation. So we'll talk through some of the benefits and really where Avnet is aligning to next. And then we'll get to some Q&A. All right, so a couple of pieces before we get there. So I mentioned I'm with HFS Research, so we're hosting this webinar today. I just want to take a couple of minutes to make sure you're all very familiar with who HFS is. So we say that our mission, the whole reason that HFS exists as an analyst firm is that we're trying to help organizations define future business operations. So that's our mission, and the lenses that we look through to try and understand how business operations are changing, how they're becoming digital operations, as this big blue circle suggests, are through the elements in the orange orbs here. These are the lenses that we look through. We're looking at a lot of these digital change agents out there, like artificial intelligence and RPA and smart analytics. Those three together we refer to as our AAA trifecta. Powerful in their own right, but more impactful or potentially exponentially impactful when used together. We also look a lot at global sourcing models. What are the decisions that enterprises are making to work with partners? That's definitely going to be a strong theme of our conversation today, because Avnet works very closely with Infosys to achieve their objectives. We also look at a lot of Horizon 3 technologies like blockchain, and we actually initiated coverage on quantum this year. And then in general, looking at how that all meshes into evolving digital business models, all in the name of helping enterprises define where we're going with future business operations. A couple of facts about HFS. We will be celebrating our 10th anniversary in 2020. So we're a firm that my CEO and founder, Phil First, launched in 2010. For those of you who perhaps know us well, you'll know that we really spun out of a very insightful blog that Phil had launched a few years before that called Horses for Sources, thus HFS. Although we do also say that perhaps we're doing a bit of a lucky gold star. The electronics brand LG now calls themselves or refers to LG as life is good. So sometimes you might hear us at HFS talk about, well, yes, our heritage is horses for sources, really all about the outsourcing industry. But as we've expanded to focus much more on change agents and how they're impacting the future of business operations, we increasingly say the HFS stands for Hyper-Connected Future State, which is part of our vision about what's the end state when you achieve digital transformation. So we'll do some exciting things for our 10th anniversary next year. And then last but not least, these are the coverage areas. So I'd mentioned some of those in that sort of the slide with lots of circles. We had mentioned some of our areas of research. But what goes through all of our research is this orange band at the top, which is what we call our Digital OneOffice, which I'll get into a bit more detail on that in just a couple of slides, and this concept of the hyper-connected enterprise. The simple explanation is we believe that your enterprises that are achieving and being successful with digital transformation are breaking down their internal silos, the whole concept of front, middle, and back office, to have all of that data, information, processes, functions, and people work much more effectively together, all for the betterment of customer experience. And then the hyper-connected enterprise is the extended concept of that, where it goes from within just your internal enterprise to your customers, to your partners, all of your external ecosystem. That's sort of taking the Digital OneOffice and externalizing it, if you will. So OneOffice pervades everything that we do. And then all of the research is in these buckets of change agents. There's that AAA trifecta again. We do a lot of research on the Internet of Things, blockchain, and there's quantum that I mentioned. We also look at functions, so business services, like business process outsourcing across all the major business process areas, IT services, as well as cybersecurity and regulatory compliance, as well as Industry 4.0. And then the fourth angle, if you will, or element, is looking across the industries. And so today, of course, is an example of we're looking through the lens of high tech, and just really understanding what it means to exist within a sector is where all the context is. So we make great effort to ensure that we're always representing the industry context. And then we do a lot of data products. But that very briefly is a quick snapshot of what HFS is all about. So we look forward today to talking about some of the change agent technologies, some of the artificial intelligence underpinning AlKhattabNet in the context of the high-tech sector. So let me go through a little bit of HFS research to set our context for today, because this whole notion, I mentioned it already, that digital transformation, it's become such a buzzword. And so we like to make sure that we're exploring, well, what is ask the question of enterprise leadership. What do you really view digital as? And so these were the options that we gave them. Well, digital, it's all about investing in new IT, or it's creating new or better customer experiences, or third option, or C, it's all about creating new revenue streams, or D, it's aligning and harmonizing business operations, or the E, the ever alarming, we don't have a digital vision. And so when we asked a variety of enterprises what their answer to this question is, hopefully my system will comply and show me this, bring up the data, review the data, here we go, the data comes flying in. Interestingly, the response to this was, the majority said it's all about investing in new IT. I always like to show this because it reminds us that the concept of digital transformation is very much in the eye of the beholder. And this is why we'll spend some time talking today about why it's so important to have that understand the why you're doing this, why you're embarking on this journey. Because if it's just about investing in new IT, that sounds very much like a project as opposed to something aligned to driving business change or driving good for your company or your customers or your employees. There is some good take up around these elements within the blue band here, because it would be our contention that what digital transformation is all about and what it enables are these elements like better CX, harmonizing business operations. And by the way, it doesn't all have to be about cost savings. That's very essential. You need to optimize what you have so you can invest in the new, but it also needs to pivot at some point and talk about creating new revenue streams. And there's also a big implication if you don't go down this path. And so some of our other research from just this year with almost 400 different both IT and business leaders was just asking folks, what's the impact of digital transformation? Do you feel the disruption? And so we asked them the simple question of, are your top 2 competitors the same now as they were back in 2016? And so it's definitely, it's changing. So we see 29% are saying, nope, it's completely changed. But that view on, well, let's look to the future. By 2021, just 2 short years from now, you see that number is going up. So it's just one way of really thinking about how do enterprises, despite sort of the digital transformation always being in the eye of the beholder, what's really the outlook here? And it's sort of that simple message. If you don't act, and not even so much these days if you don't act, but if you're not effective, it can have gigantic implications for your brand. And so we ask enterprises as well, as you're trying to go on this journey, what do you feel are your immediate business pressures? It's sort of that what's keeping you up at night when you think about what you're trying to achieve with digital transformation. And so we've got orange is option number 1, or priority or biggest challenge number 1, blue is biggest challenge number 2, and the yellow or amber is biggest challenge number 3. So we've got them ranked by overall. But the top 3 are always interesting. So the things keeping enterprises up at night are really how you get that personalization and real customization of your products or services to customers. Really back again, combating that, just as per the previous slide, combating your disruptive digital competitors. But the one that I really want to highlight here is the one that got the largest share of the number 1 inhibitor or challenge, which is the shift from towards digital for more physical experiences. And this is where it starts to become very important to the Avnet story. And then last but not least, I just wanted to briefly show you the HFS view of where does digital transformation lead you is our OneOffice concept. And we use some interesting terminology here, but essentially you can think of what we're trying to represent as a new view showing that if you You can leverage it with your existing systems or perhaps with legacy systems that you're migrating and modernizing. But increasingly, a lot of these new change agents are creating a layer of intelligent automation and just really superior decisioning capabilities that sit on top of these systems that are really enabling enterprises to break down those front, middle, and back office silos to work together more effectively. And the big winners of this are intended to be we call it the outcome-driven front office, but really just making it so much easier for your customers to do business with you, to get better experiences. The other big winners, by the way, if you do this well, are also your employees. But that's the Digital OneOffice, and that's really intended to set a bit of context for our conversation today. And so with that context in check, I'd love to turn over to what I termed before as, let's dive into a bit of an interview with some slides and learn a bit more about Avnet and this very interesting Ask Avnet initiative. And so Nishant, I'd love to start with you. I've got a slide up here that just is a bit of a background on Avnet, but I think that's the logical place to start. Could you spend maybe a few minutes and give us some background about your organization? What should we know about Avnet? And then we'd also like to learn a bit more about you and your role within Avnet.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Elena. The slide I think in itself is relatively self-explanatory, but one of the things that I kind of thought when I introduced Avnet is we're a global technology solutions company, and we have an extensive ecosystem that delivers design, product, marketing, and supply chain expertise for customers at every stage of the product life cycle. So if you think about the technology maybe we are leveraging today, the hardware technology to have this webinar, there is a likelihood that Avnet may have had a role in bringing that to life. Okay, so that's kind of gives you an idea of that. And really, I think if you look at some of the statistics that's on the screen, we've been around for almost 100 years. We serve customers globally, millions of customers globally. We have tens of thousands of employees globally, and taking it back for a second, it gives you an idea of scale of what this Avnet machine is that's been around for such a long time and offers a wide range of customers, a wide range of services. So with that being said, the role of digital at Avnet, the way I like to describe it, is ubiquitous. Right? At Avnet, digital is an overlay where we have digital initiatives taking place in my finance organization, in marketing, in supply chain, in sales, of course, and so on and so forth. And the role that me and my team play here is really to enable and activate those digital initiatives so that transformation is happening. And to a large extent, also ensure that we are leading and pioneering some of the larger, more transformative digital initiatives to drive meaningful change in a relatively short period of time.
Got it. Thank you, Nishant, for that background on Avnet. I think one of the, and as well as for that context on the role of digital within Avnet, I think one of the things as well that might be interesting to mention, you're a firm that's been around, you mentioned you're more than 100 years old, so that definitely has a decent implication in terms of you have a firm baseline, a reputation, and a lot of history there. But I believe part of what's been sort of part of the more modern or perhaps more recent story with Avnet has been, I believe you have a new CEO, but you've also been going through a bit of M&A and so forth. So it's really driving some change within Avnet. Maybe just take 30 seconds more and just let us know if that's, how relevant is that context to the story and the direction?
Yes, absolutely. And just a slight correction there, Elena, almost 100 years, and not quite 100 yet. We are 98 and counting. I'm sure we'll get there strong. But you're right, yes. Since our CEO, Bill, has been around, we have gone through some massive transformation and pivoting to becoming a technology solutions company. Now, how do you do that, right? We are going up value curve from not just selling and offering hardware solutions, but also providing end-to-end solutions that will comprise of services and software, right? The question, how do you do that? It's required us to enhance and rapidly build our capabilities through M&A activities. We have had a number of acquisitions from acquiring Premier Farnell, which is a high service distribution company, to Dragon and Hackster, which is one of the largest engineering communities out there. We've had some more recent acquisitions as well in the space of IoT. As Elena, as you mentioned, like digital transformation is a buzzword. Some might argue so is IoT, but again, that's really transforming many of the industries, and Avnet is really positioned to be at the forefront of that, and that's why we are building our capabilities in these areas.
Well, super. Thanks for that additional context, Nishant. So I've just put up a quote from one of our earlier conversations. It's actually from that report that I mentioned early on, that essentially a case study that I've written about the Avnet part of your digital transformation journey. But I mentioned that one of the themes I think it's really important to talk about is that is this concept of where do you start? And so I'd love for you to help us, at least give us your perspective on that question today. Just really as you work to define where to start Avnet's digital journey, you had come up with this idea of, well, perhaps customer experience was the right way to start. Could you talk us through some of your process and really your logic? Because I mean, obviously, intuitively, we know, of course, it's all about your customers. But I know that there's more complexity to that. But talk us through a little bit of that process as to why you thought that that might be a winning place to start and to prioritize.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of the things you want to kind of set out at the onset is that we are not paying lip service when we say we started with a customer. We generally mean that, right? For us, as in the previous slides you saw, we have millions of customers globally, and actually those millions of customers have hundreds of options where they could go elsewhere. So for us to ensure that we are the #1 partner for our customers, for our millions of customers globally, we need to make sure that they're always front and center for us. Okay. With that being said, when I began the digital transformation journey here at Avnet, we didn't start with the solution. We didn't start with the solution. We didn't start with the technology. Of course, we looked at best practices. HFS, you published some great reports around things, work with our partners with Infosys and case studies from other organizations. But we didn't want to take a cookie cutter approach. We really started with our customer and understand, okay, what are the customer pain points? What are the job the customer is trying to do, and how can we help them do that job better in the most frictionless way possible? Okay, we started that. But then we didn't just stop there, because if you really look at it, and this is the rocket science here, I don't think many of us have thought that, including me for quite a long time, the employee experience, right? Employee experience is really linked to the customer experience. So okay, then as we look at the customer, let's look at employees, let's look at our frontline employees, and even our back-office employees. What is their experience? How can we alleviate some of the pain points that they have and take away some of the mundane tasks so they can focus more on the value-added activity, the delighting our customers, versus going down the route of process paralysis. So that's where we started, Elena, with our customers, and we quickly moved on to our employee experience, from which we took in and developed our digital transformation strategy.
Got it. And just again, really creating that path for, because as I know, as we note here in this quote, and part of why I included it here is because I think it's just an apt point that it's not about the technology, or at least only about the technology. You've got to have that clear path forward, as well as something that your sponsors can really get behind. So let's go then. I'm going to transition us a little bit to talk about, because all right, so you're in pursuit of improved customer experience. I think the dual focus of customer experience, plus also trying to improve the world and work life for your employees, I think that that's a great dual objective. But being a digital lead, part of how you were trying to get there was through some digital technologies. So you also, because again, the cool tech comes into play as well, you had a bit of a vision for wanting to explore how artificial intelligence, which I will refer to as AI for the balance of the conversation today, how you could use some permutations of AI to help you bring together this concept. So I would love for you to talk to us a little bit about what was this vision when you thought, okay, let's see, what can we focus on to support improved customer experience, improved employee experience, and that will give us the right avenue to leverage artificial intelligence. What was this vision, which of course became AlKhattabNet, but tell us how you got on that path.
Yes, absolutely. So for us, we, as I said, started with the customer understanding the pain points, and very quickly were able to come up with a variety of solutions that we thought would alleviate those pain points and delight customers really to a large extent. Many of those actually turned out to be other products that exist in the Avnet ecosystem, but I won't go into that today. But when we first started with those concepts and those prototypes, they evolved and morphed over a period of time because actually we had something in mind about how we create a service that would be omnipresent for our customers to address their needs, 24/7, right? So I mean, on a very high level, if that's what we created, then we come up with the question, okay, how are you going to bring that to life, right? And this is where technology comes in, and there's no hiding from that, right? And I love technology like everyone else, which I'm sure who are on this webinar today. But our knowledge and experience and our capability in that was limited, especially as we start talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and other relevant technologies. We could have gone down the path of rapidly expanding our capabilities by hiring a large team and doing it that way, but clearly that wasn't an option for us for a variety of reasons. But thankfully, that's where Infosys comes in, right? Because we've been partnering with them for such a long period of time. And even when we were conceptualizing some of these solutions, we had them every step of the way so that they knew it firsthand what it is that we are trying to achieve. And then the technology overlay comes in to our partners at Infosys there.
Got it. Thank you for the background. I think it would be useful for our attendees to understand, when you were initially conceptualizing this, Nishant, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that this was in 2017 or so. And while I think we had a lot of chatbots, if I may call them that, and I'll even go on to a slide to demonstrate that a bit, there may have been some real low-level sort of fact-based chatbots that were available at that time. But it sounds like, and particularly in your sector, I don't think any other electronics distributors were doing anything like this. It seemed like it was a little bit of a crazy or almost science fiction type idea when you actually looked into this. Did you have, I mean, you tell us though, I mean, did you have any real models for inspiration, or was it just, we think we can do this, but we're definitely dabbling in the unknown a bit?
Yeah, we were definitely dabbling in the unknown. We have, we obviously worked with our software vendor who provided the platform to build this, and even working with them, it was really visible really early on that we were trying to do something that hadn't been done at that time. Right? We were definitely the first ones in our industry to have delivered a intelligent agent, as we call it, and I'm sure we'll share more about that later on, combining human and chatbot capabilities in one experience. There weren't any use cases out there in terms of what we were trying to do over and above simple interactive bots, as you called it, where you'd have simple queries that get addressed, but that they were very canned responses, which when we tested it in the early stages to our customers, they weren't particularly delighted by that. So we knew right at the upfront we were in kind of uncharted territory, and there was an element of this did not work. Okay, I'm going to be honest with you. There was an element of that because we really didn't know at the time. Of course, I'm glad it worked out for us, but again, thanks to the various partners that we had on the journey.
Well, and I asked that question specifically, Nishant, because it reminds us that the whole concept of transformation, what underpins transformation is inherent change and risk and doing things differently. So, I mean, I have great respect for Avnet for being willing to really dive into the unknown, to go into the dark water and say, okay, we haven't done this before and we're not exactly sure where it will go, but if it actually works, if we get some modicum of success, it can just be incredibly groundbreaking for us. So applause for that. I've put up a slide here. I'm just going to take a moment to talk through. So at HFS, as part of our research looking at different evolving forms of intelligent automation, there's definitely a concept of the digital workers have evolved. And so at one end, on the left side of the screen, we've got sort of more of the desktop automation and then all the rage around RPA and such with some of the vendors that are participating there, but really with a lack of cognition. As you start to move to the right side, you get more of these. You get the chatbot concept that I mentioned. And we, just for avoidance of doubt, at HFS, we do make a distinction between a chatbot and what we'll call a cognitive assistant, and cognitive being the operative word there, where chatbots are typically, it's like the assistant version of RPA, which tends to work well with fact-based rules that are essentially programmed, and it lacks intelligence to really think or be trained to think and respond to situations and respond to queries that us pesky and challenging humans may put to them. And so getting all the way to the far end, the complex end, where the cognitive capability is represented is what we term cognitive assistance. And so all of our research that HFS has done around cognitive assistance is that these are not out-of-the-box solutions. You really need to go through your cycles and your paces of training up your algorithms and such. Often, and these cases I'm thinking of are often machine learning heavy, but there's definitely legwork to be done. And so off the back of some of your prior comments, Nishant, it wasn't an area where you had expertise. But I'll just sort of smile a bit and say, did you have a whole crop of data scientists sitting around? I suspect the answer is probably no, but just would love, because this starts to be the segue of perhaps we'll get Komal to come into our conversation a little bit more, but just as you contemplated, well, how are we going to do this? Just share with us sort of whether you did have a treasure trove of data scientists who were like, we got this, no worries, or if it was very different.
Yeah, I would love to say that we had a massive team of data scientists, but unfortunately not. And frankly, at the time when we started this, that wasn't even that popular a resource or capability, at least back in early 2017. But this is why we really lent heavily on Infosys to provide us that service, especially around data scientists. Just to put things into perspective, and one of the points I wanted to call out, there are in certain industries you would be fine taking an out-of-the-box solution to achieve your objective of conversational commerce, right? And that's fine. I would say retail may be there, and maybe in the finance sector as well to a certain extent. But when you start looking at the sector we are in the technology sector, where we have over 7 million SKUs of parts that we sell on a website, the complexity is so great that there isn't any out-of-the-box solution. And that's where you really need resources and expertise in data science, which we didn't have. We didn't know how to leverage machine learning technologies, how to leverage some of the platforms that we had procured from our partners. But that's where Infosys comes in, right? I mean, they were very open and right from the beginning in knowing our current baseline and then working with us to enhance our capabilities, but also turbocharge our pilot so we could have had something out in the market quick enough to test it and enhance that. Again, every step of the way, we built our own capabilities as well, so it wasn't just, okay, we're going to have just Infosys provide that indefinitely as a service, but that really helped us accelerate time to market and again, get to value quicker.
Yep, indeed. So Komal, I'd like to invite you into the conversation. So part of what Nishant is saying is that they really look to Infosys to help them with some of the capability, but would love to hear a little bit of background on, because I believe that Infosys was already an existing services partner with Avnet, because I think that perhaps it's one thing to have some of the skills and maybe the data science expertise that was necessary to start enabling Avnet to build out this concept of its Ask Avnet digital assistant. But having some context about their business and just really understanding what that would take also strikes me as quite important. But would love to hear your thoughts on that, Komal.
So I think you touched upon a very key element, Elena. So when we started this initiative or started contemplating, we were in 2017, we were 3 years into a relationship with Avnet. Right now we are almost at 5. So, and during those 3 years, we had partnered with Avnet on their digital transformation journey. We were also working with their team on their enterprise application landscape. But more importantly, on both of these programs, we were able to engage both with their technology as well as with their business users across multiple geographies. So we'd worked with the team in the Americas, Europe, as well as Asia Pac. And coupled with this, our understanding of the high-tech distribution industry kind of gave us insight into what we should be looking at, right? And I think you mentioned early on that there was availability of chatbots that were available, and Nishant mentioned about how high-tech distribution industry is extremely complex. You just can't apply chatbot solution and hope it'll work. We also kind of looked at the end user, right, who's going to come to the website and leverage Ask Avnet capability, looked at the various personas that we had to do, and most importantly, putting various internal systems together, right? Because if you really look at it, you have to look at product information across millions and millions of parts in the real time. You have to look at the order information. You have to be able to do the correlation all in real time, right? So to build that together, I think we were on a strong footing, having that deep appreciation of the Avnet business. And I felt that really helped us in a big way to get this program off to start in the right direction.
Absolutely. I mean, it's in many ways, Komal, it reminds me of at the start of our conversation today, I made reference to how at HFS we view it as very, very important to do some of our research, or a lot of our research, through the industry lens, because that's where the context is. So that's precisely the type of same context and understanding that you were able to bring to the table, to not just bring Avnet the machine learning and AI capabilities that they needed, but also the broader context in which their market is playing, what it means to be a B2B electronics distributor, doing more in solutioning and such. And so let's talk a little bit about the actually bringing this to life, though, because even back in 2017, I mean, machine learning and data science, the sort of AI capabilities and the underlying data science, my expert sources tell me that a lot of the capabilities have been around for quite some time, but they're, by that same token, it's what you're using the algorithms to actually build. And you made the point that it was decently nascent at this time. And so I think one of the other things that I recall is that it was very challenging, but just wondering about some of because I believe that you guys ultimately worked with Microsoft on this, but just some of your relationships with other tech vendors. I think it would be interesting to, number one, understand a bit about what you ultimately pulled together, but then also how some of the Infosys relationship with a vendor like Microsoft, for example, actually helped support something and enhance the development of this cognitive assistant when it was still quite a nascent market.
Right, absolutely. So first and foremost, I think that the focus was, as Nishan mentioned, on how do we want to address our end users and also be able to free up the time for our internal teams, right? And before we hone in on Microsoft as a potential partner, we looked at all that is possible because there was nothing that existing in the industry. Second important thing that was key for us was, you know, there are players who were toying with a chatbot option, but we didn't want that to guide the customer experience. So we were really looking at putting a cognitive assistant out there, which enhanced the end user experience when they come to Avnet, get a solution, get it in fast, and go on to, you know, ordering a product or get the status of the product that they had ordered, right? So we really had to look at what is out in the market. Most importantly, we had set a bar in terms of how we can enhance the overall capability when they come to a cognitive assistant. So that is where I think the relationship with Microsoft play a key role. They are an existing partner. We worked with them on various other AI-led initiatives, but this was the first in the distribution industry. So working closely with Microsoft, we were able to get confidence that their solution blends very well into the challenge we're trying to solve. You know, and we had great access to their architects, data scientists, and bundling it with the industry knowledge that we had, also coupled with the inputs that we got from Nishant and his team, we were able to craft a solution where we started something small, put it out there in the market, and then started honing it. And again, over the last, you know, the journey of this program, it was about, you know, what all we can address and what all functionality we can provide, taking a part of it, getting it out there, getting a good positive feedback, and tweaking it in real time. Deployment time, speed of response were key, and I think the relationship with Microsoft really helped us make sure that the overall experience from an initiative like this is really enhanced. And the results obviously talk about themselves.
Super, thank you for that, Komal. Nishant, anything to add to Komal's? Does that all sound very much in line with how this all came about and what you felt that Infosys brought to the table here?
Yes, absolutely. I think I recall distinctly, I mean, where I am now, I can see the room across the street where we were huddled up for a good few weeks with Infosys and Microsoft, and we were working with another partner at the time, AlKhattabNet, and of course, our Avnet experts, both from our IT organization and the business side, trying to solve this problem that we didn't have a case study or blueprint to follow, right? And again, looking at the other services that were there, at the time there wasn't a degree of maturity. I think for me, of course, we are here to talk about AlKhattabNet and how it's helped Avnet and enhance and drive digital transformation. But the way we worked at the time as well, Elena, I think that was a new way of working for us. We hadn't worked like that before, okay? And that model is something that we were able to make it repeatable. And now, as we are trying, of course, that's not the be-all and end-all of all digital transformation. We have multiple other projects that we are working on. But that's helped build a new muscle memory that now we are exercising for our broader digital transformation as well.
So that's interesting, Nishant, because it reminds me, it sounds, I mean, almost conceptually like as you start to move to more of a DevOps type of approach with just some of the, like you said, you're huddling up, you're conceptualizing, you're seeing what you can come up with and just doing your best to move fast. And like we said before, really taking sort of new and interesting strides. Well, let's talk a little bit about, so how did it turn out? Nishant, tell us a little bit about Ask Avnet, and we'd also really love to know, I think it's important to know, just to that, my reference I made a moment ago to both fail fast, but I mean, anything sort of akin to something loosely DevOps oriented. It's also, there's lots of iterations and you're trying to get some speed out of it as well. It's not to say that going fast is the sole objective here, but I think just understanding some of the time scales and what it took to get this just groundbreaking as well as very complex capability off the ground would be helpful. But why don't we start? We'll start with this sort of. What the heck is Ask Avnet? Looks like we've gone quiet. So Nishant, wanted to send this question over to you, which is, tell us a little bit about what Ask Avnet looks like.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. Rookie mistake, right?
Good.
Yes, Ask Avnet, before we came up with the name even Ask Avnet, before we conceived the notion of an intelligent agent, we had a strapline, right? We wanted to build a solution that would connect you, the user, the customer, to the knowledge you need. Okay, so that was kind of a mantra, like that was something that we had, right? Our mission statement, if you want to call it that. But then let's boil down to Ask Avnet. When we started fleshing it out, we soon realized that we can't go down the route of a standard chatbot or even a standard cognitive agent route. We had to build an intelligent agent in the way that married and automated assistants that could answer, some of your more standard questions available 24/7 based on artificial intelligence, but also have on hand Avnet expertise on demand that can go deeper if the queries from the customers and the users became more complex. Because right from the beginning, again in our testing stages, we knew that customers and the users were forgiving, but only to a certain extent. And if Ask Avnet didn't deliver to the promise, as I said in the strapline up on the screen there, they would not come back. And that was something that they were very clear with us. And we were like, oh my God, okay, we need to make sure that this is good out of the gate. But again, this required a lot of testing here, Elena. We started with over 24 feature sets when we had our first beta, but then soon realized we couldn't deliver a great experience on those 24 feature sets, and we had to reduce them. We reduced it to half a dozen feature sets when we first launched Ask Avnet to our customers and opened the beta for all users to interact with it. But again, that was a test and learn journey, and I believe we could have only got there by making those small errors and mistakes, and by testing them with our customers and being open-minded to changing and pivoting, so that we could deliver to the promise again that is there up on the screen.
Cool, thank you for that, Nishant. I'll react to just a couple of quick points, which is, so just sort of the T that's in the middle of the screen, just coming back to, again, we said that we would talk about the sort of why of all of this, but you were very clear on your vision of it needed to support customer experience, but also to support employee experience. And so this concept of being able to pivot over to human experts as necessary is incredibly important, because that helps make sure that there's, should there be a frustration factor, that it keeps it at a minimum for any of your customers. But then the flip side of that, though, is that from your, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, a lot of the folks that are your essential Avnet equivalent of a customer service agent, these guys are actually makers in their own right. They're often engineers. They have a high level of capability. So the ability to have them perhaps do less mundane tasks and really coming in kind of at the right time is a pretty critical concept. So it's both that balance, and that's kind of what I always think of this T. You're balancing to both sides of it, which is delivering on the strong customer experience, but also creating an enhanced employee experience. And am I getting that right?
Absolutely, Elena. I mean, that was so important for us, right? Because I mean, even more recent times, we have two sides of the camp on AI. One's like, oh, it's going to come and to take your job. The other side is, no, it's going to go and help you and help you have a more fulfilling career. And it's like, where do you end up on that? And I'm going to stay away from that debate, but at least for us, it was clearly that we wanted to ensure that we are using technology, of course, to enhance our customer experience, but also to delight our employees and make their jobs more fulfilling. We have employees who are highly qualified, very intelligent individuals. We didn't want them to answer mundane questions that a bot could answer. And again, from a customer perspective, they could have got to an AI interface 24/7, right? That's available 24/7, and that's great. Versus having to wait for your typical 8 to 6 timeline when you have people who are manning some of these channels. So again, there was a degree of a trade-off, but again, benefiting both the customer experience and the employee experience.
Got it. And I know I'm just keeping an eye on time, but I just wanted to take maybe 30 seconds and mention this piece. Akin to the points I made earlier about the Digital OneOffice model, that one of the success criteria is that you start to break down silos. You mentioned earlier, Nishant, that part of the evolution of Avnet has been lots of different M&A, sort of change and evolution of your scope. But just I know we included this slide to make that point, that it's been some unification of your capabilities across brands. Maybe if you could just give us a couple of words on how important this was as well.
Yes, this was really crucial for us. So Avnet has an ecosystem strategy. We have gone down the path of acquiring a number of companies over the past few years, Hacker.io, Element14.com, and many other companies. So the idea was, okay, if we wanted to have a concierge service for our customers to get value from all these different companies in one place, in one experience, how can we do that? That's where AlKhattabNet came in, because AlKhattabNet actually sits on all these 3 different websites and web properties, but ties them together in a very seamless manner without coming across as being overbearing. Again, that was very important for us.
Great. So that's just another one of those gains. So I think this one sort of bottom lines it and also gives, we did just so we're quite clear, I think all of us have been involved in too many live demos that go horribly wrong. So we've just got a screenshot of Ask Avnet here. But Ask Avnet is live. It exists today. If you type in Ask Avnet, you can go and test this out yourself. But Nishant, you want to this is essentially what it came out to be. Maybe if you could trot us through these real quick, and then we'll balance out the conversation today with some of the overarching benefits that Avnet has realized.
Certainly, and again, we started with the prompt of what was the vision, but then, okay, how are we going to bring that vision to life? What were the key objectives that we had? And what you're seeing on the screen, this is a very old slide. This slide is from 2017, but I think that's what makes it interesting. Even today, this is what we are trying to achieve, right? So we want to give our customers a fast and easy access, enable conversations in more of a natural language versus canned responses. We want our AlKhattabNet to be proactive, because today we have so much data information from our customers. Instead of it just being passive, in certain cases we are using as a mechanism of interrupting the customer journey, but in a way to delight them versus coming across as annoying. Want to give them the best answer instead of having a list of, okay, here's a list of 100 options for you to click through. But no, we want to give them the best answer with a high degree of confidence. We want it to be transparent and unbiased. And what I mean by that is we want to be transparent when they were interacting with a machine and when they were interacting with a human. That was very important for us, again, to start with, and really provide them quick transactions to detailed design support. Again, Avnet has thousands of fantastic engineers, so that if in the interaction they needed more deeper conversations, more one-on-one, that could have been taken offline. So that was kind of the main feature set that we started with, and even today, this is what we hold true to.
That's super. It's just, I mean, really, you guys were doing some pioneer work here, really trailblazing and doing something truly new to the electronics distribution sector. All right, so let's do this. I don't think we need to drain all of these, but Nishant, I think it would be interesting for our participants for you to say, as you really now turn to, okay, you built that, you conceptualized, you built it, it's very effective, it's doing great things for your organization today. In terms of the results, I mean, what would you point to here as being the most impactful? I know they're all important. We've got a whole bunch of items here, but maybe just bottom line it.
I would bottom line it, and that, for me, that's an easy one. So, what the one and the most important KPI for us when we launched AlKhattabNet, even today, is customer experience, right? It's not revenue, it's not orders, it's not number of times, how long they've been interacting with AlKhattabNet, but the customer experience, and we survey customers at the end of each interaction. And honestly, Elena, I couldn't be more happy with how we are trending in that. We are surpassing the customer experience score that we get through a normal chat agent. Okay, that's quite telling that this human plus machine combination of intelligent agent is truly working. Now, that's all well and good, but technology is also enhancing. So as we look to the next 6, 12, 18, 24-month horizon, we are really actively engaged with, again, Infosys and the team to say, okay, how can we take our camera to that next level where we can offer even more complex, address even more complex queries and delight customers in even more valuable ways.
Got it. Thank you for that, Nishant. All right, I know we've got just a couple of minutes left, so I want to toggle over to some of our questions. Thank you to those who've submitted some questions. Just for reference, and again, when we post the replay of this, we always like to include some links to other relevant research on this topic of artificial intelligence, digital transformation, the journey to the Digital OneOffice, as well as cognitive assistance. So we've sort of curated an assortment of HFS research. Most of this sits in front of our firewall, so even if you're not an HFS client, this is accessible to you. So we did, as expected, because we're talking about a technical solution, we did get a couple of questions asking about some of the technology and functionality. So one participant had asked a question around, firstly, just let's confirm, was wondering if AlKhattabNet requires a bit of high priority data queries. And if that's the case, it's just really wondering about, have you been happy with the response times that AlKhattabNet actually delivers? And are you able to do as well any real-time client analysis off the back of any of these interactions that you're getting?
Yeah, so Elena, I can quickly chime in on that, and maybe we might have other folks chime in as well. But this was a pain point for us because I think somebody mentioned, I don't know if it was you, that we initially weren't able, we were having issues because we have such large number of queries to be done with 7 million plus parts. How do you do that? So there were a number of instances of re-architecting the AlKhattabNet itself that we had to do. Again, we have KPIs and we have monitors in place, again, which the Infosys team helps monitor us on an hourly, on a daily basis to make sure that our performance is not impacted by that. But again, it's never done, and we continue to refine it and update it. Komal, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
No, I think you touched upon the key element, Nishant. I think speed was the key element because we wanted as close to human-like experience, right? Something that has the context. So we looked at various parametric search options, toyed with few of them before we finalized on the one, because I think we were trying to bundle in the natural language processing and the speed. And finally, after a few iterations, we were able to get to the one that really worked in this scenario.
Super. We'll do one more. We're right at the top of the hour, but I'll do one more question, just a very functional one. So I believe you mentioned, Nishant, so this was English language, but as you've been rolling it out and have been doing more with it, just wondering, I think the specific question was wondering about whether the language is customizable, but we can also take that, and an answer to that would be great, but maybe also use that as a springboard just to talk about where do you go from here with AlKhattabNet.
Yeah, certainly. So that language is definitely on a roadmap, and I'm sure the Infosys team will confirm that with you. Especially in Asia, that's something we've been testing internally to make sure we get to the point where the customer experience is satisfactory. We are not there yet, but we are continually working on that to make sure that we can enhance that. I think the other thing I would say, though, at least in our industry, again in technology and engineering, some of the phraseologies that's used by customers are universal across many languages, right? So that benefits us in that way. But again, more work needs to be done. We started with English. It addresses the majority of the population, and we have a roadmap to enhance that in other geographies and languages.
Yeah, Raspberry Pi is Raspberry Pi, almost anywhere. All right, Komal, anything to add to that?
Yeah. No, I think from the end user base, I think English continues to be the primary language. Working with our partners, we're looking at German and some of the languages, especially for the APAC region.
Well, super. All right, folks, I know we're out of time. I'd like to thank all of our attendees for coming and joining us today. We really appreciate your interest. As I mentioned, we'll post a replay early next week. You can find that on hfsresearch.com. I'd like to extend just a gigantic thank you to Nishant from Avnet and Komal from Infosys. Thank you so much for sharing this facet of your digital transformation journey with us today. And with that, I wish everybody a great rest of the day. This officially concludes our webinar.
Thank you, everyone.